Hey guys, what's going on? Jeff here from Films at Home. In today's video, we're going to talk about 10 horror movies that I have in my collection that you may not know about, but you should definitely watch sometime this Halloween season because they are underrated gems in my opinion. So before we get started, I want to thank everyone for coming back to the channel. You may notice that this video is in 4K. I am now shooting my videos in 4K. I recently upgraded to an iPhone 12 Pro and ended up having a better camera than what I was using for a regular standard camera before. So now all my videos will be in 4K and hopefully look a little bit better. So just so you know, you should be seeing a quality upgrade, hopefully, if I upload this correctly. So these 10 movies I'm not going to put in any particular order because this is not so much a ranking as it's just 10 recommendations, movies that you may not think about during the Halloween season, especially, you know, all the horror movies that are out there. A lot of people, when they think Halloween, they think horror movies, they think of the big slashers, the Friday the 13th, the Halloweens, Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We all know the very famous ghost stories in the mainstream horror movies from the last few years, The Conjuring, The Witch, Hereditary, lots of movies like that that have been very popular. And then always there's the classics like The Exorcist and The Shining and things like that, which are always great to watch. So hopefully this gives you 10 movies that you can dive into, whether you get all 10 or you just want to try a couple. They're all available on physical media, which is great. You can find a few of them on streaming, but I wanted to make sure that every one of these was available on Blu-ray so the collectors out there can add it to your collection. And hopefully this gives you a good idea of what to watch here in the week leading up to Halloween. So the first one I want to highlight is The Collector, and this is a guilty pleasure movie of mine. I really like this movie. I actually talked about it in my last collection update video, and it's what got me thinking about it because the basic storyline here is that there's this serial killer and he has booby-trapped a house to basically slowly kill and torture the family that lives there. And at the same time, there is a robber who breaks into the house trying to steal the family's precious items to pay off some debts that he owes. And he shows up in the middle of the night. The family's not there. They're supposed to have gone on vacation. And then he slowly finds out, oh, they never made it on their vacation. And there's some really messed up stuff happening in the house. So The Collector, it's a quick watch. It has awesome music. This movie is super gory as well. It has a lot of gore, like over the top level. Even more than like a Saw movie. It's in that same vein though. It has a lot of gore. So if you're looking for a gory, kind of interesting serial killer, pretty scary movie too. It has a lot of jump scares and good moments. I'd highly recommend The Collector. Go check that out. The next one up takes a different turn. This is much more of a psychological horror movie, much more of a thriller than a slasher or gore movie, but it is The Invitation from Draft House Films. Draft House Films is now the studio Neon, who you may know, but they used to have a label called Draft House Films. I talked about this. Hamilton Book was carrying a few of their releases recently, and they put out really cool movies, The Invitation being one of them. And this was one of my favorite horror movies from a few years back. I love psychological horror movies, even more so than slashers, gory, serial killer type movies. I love a good psychological thriller, and The Invitation is awesome. It's a bit of a slow burn, so if you like a slow burn horror movie, kind of builds up to a really scary, freaky ending. And you never fully know what's going on until the movie actually ends and gets to the end credits. So if you like to, stay on your toes, stay guessing, The Invitation, definitely recommend this one. It has a great cast too. It has Logan Marshall Green from Prometheus, Tammy Blanchard from Into the Woods, Michael Huisman from Game of Thrones, and also has now I'm blanking on the guy's name. Hopefully he's on this list. John Carroll Lynch, who is a super creepy guy. Oh, he's like a character actor, but he always plays this super creepy character, and he kills it in this movie. So highly recommend this. Draft House Films, Blu-ray. This might be a few bucks on eBay. They'll be hard to find, but they're out there, and it's well worth it. The next one's part of the Criterion Collection, and I'm going way back in the day. We're talking 98 years ago to 1922, and I've got Hacken. This is a Swedish silent movie that is all about the history of witchcraft. And so it's an hour and 40 minutes long, black and white, completely silent. It has Swedish intertitles, but they put on English subtitles, and it's in that 1:33 aspect ratio. So it's going to be squared off, boxed on your screen. But this is a new 2K restoration, and it has original music from the 1922 premiere, and there's also a bunch of other special features. But what makes this movie so cool is that it is some of the creepiest, like, gothic horror that I've seen, even though it's 100 years old. The imagery in this is incredibly spooky. This came out even, 10 years before Dracula, Frankenstein. This is a super early horror movie, and the Europeans, for whatever reason, they seem to understand horror and did it much better than any American filmmakers did, because if you look at Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and Nosferatu and then Hacken, I mean, these are some seriously creepy movies that hold up 100 years later. So if you're looking for a silent movie, something different, black and white, and you're looking for some Criterion Collection recommendations, Hacken is a great one. Super spooky, and it does actually give you some history. It goes through all the different things about witchcraft throughout history, and the Middle Ages to the modern era, and how, hysteria and all of that. So it's a really interesting movie, but also a really creepy one. Now, the next one I'm going to recommend is also from the Criterion Collection, and this is one that some serious horror fans, you probably will know, but it's another foreign movie, and it's called Funny Games, and this is another psychological, just torturous movie to watch. I don't want to give away too many details about it, but it's Michael Haneke. It was remade in the US. I think Tim Roth and somebody else. It was a very well-known remake in the US at the time, but this is the original. This is 1997, the original, so it's got subtitles, English subtitles, it's in German, but this is gory, it is psychological, it is disturbing, it is all the things you want in a horror movie. And if you like things that are up that alley, I'd say something like The Strangers, mixed with the psychology of like a Hereditary. But honestly, there's really nothing like this to compare it to. Funny Games stands on its own. It's seriously disturbed. A lot of people put it on some of the most disturbing movies of all time list. But if you're looking for something interesting, it's Criterion Collection. It's quality. This is a great release from them. It's got a new 2K restoration, 5.1 surround, a bunch of new interviews and things like that. So if you're interested, I would definitely check it out. It's a little bit of an odd one, another foreign movie, but some of the foreign horror is so overlooked here in the United States, and it's so good. So if you can, work with the subtitles, which I personally don't mind, you can really see some spooky, messed up movies. So now the next one I have here is from Scream Factory, and this is an asylum ghost demon horror type movie, which I haven't covered a lot of these yet so far in the video, but this is Session 9, and I think this gets overlooked a lot. It's from, I want to say 2001, yeah, and it has a good cast. I mean, it has Brad Anderson from The Machinist is the director. It's got David Caruso from CSI Miami, Peter Mullen from Trainspotting, Paul Guilfoyle, Josh Lucas from American Psycho. I mean, it has a lot of people in it that you would probably recognize. But the reason I like this so much is because the setting is actually the old Danvers State Hospital in Massachusetts, which is like a short drive for me to get to. Unfortunately, it's not there anymore. There's actually I think from what I heard, there's like condos on it. And first of all, you're absolutely insane if you live in those condos. The Danvers State Hospital was one of the most haunted places in the United States, if not the world. And so they shot this movie on location at the state hospital, and it's basically about a bunch of guys who are they're going into an asylum because they work for a hazmat elimination company, and they're trying to clean out the old asylum from things like asbestos and other hazards, and they just kind of slowly deteriorate, and weird stuff starts happening, and there's ghosts and really creepy scenes. And if you like the asylum, scary asylum, haunted house type setting, Session 9 I would highly recommend. So now for the next one, I am going to stick with Scream Factory for a second, and this is a movie that you definitely know. You definitely know it because of the original, but this one, I think that this may be the best in the series from a horror standpoint, and it is The Exorcist 3. Now, this often gets overlooked because obviously most people know The Exorcist, super famous movie, William Friedkin. Everybody knows that movie. It was widely acclaimed, critically acclaimed, did a ton of money, and it has some iconic horror scenes. but I actually think that The Exorcist 3 is the scarier movie. This is a new 2K scan from Scream Factory. It has one of the scariest moments of any movie that I've ever seen. I won't give away what it is so you can be unprepared for when it hits you, but super scary moments in this. It's actually William Peter Blatty's the author of The Exorcist. This is his original personal vision of what would happen after the original movie. So, everyone says this is the true sequel, and it is really, really good, really creepy, really scary. And if you like The Exorcist, you definitely need to see The Exorcist 3. You can skip the second one, the sequel. It's just not as good as this guy. Now I'm going to jump around here back to another label that specializes in horror and cult movies, but a different label in Arrow Video, and get back to some more foreign horror. And this one is Audition. This is a Japanese horror movie by the famous Japanese director Takashi Miike. And this movie is just so messed up and super gory and disturbing and hard to watch, but it gets overlooked, especially in the Western world, in the United States, Canada, English-speaking countries, because it is a Japanese horror movie and you have to deal with the subtitles. It's one of the few Asian horror movies that hasn't been remade for the US audience, which makes it really unique, and also why it gets overlooked. When you look at other movies like The Ring and the One Missed Call trilogy and The Grudge and all these other Asian horror movies that were remade here in the US, Audition for some reason hasn't had that happen. Maybe the director likes his original vision and doesn't want to mess with it, and I can't blame him for that. But this is a great movie. This is a new 2K scan of Audition, and it is so brutal and dark and twisted. But if you like Asian horror, this takes it, I would say this dials that up from a 10. This puts it up to 11, and it's awesome. So I highly recommend this one. You can get it from Arrow Video. It was out of print in the US for a very, very long time, and Arrow Video recently put it out, I want to say like last year. So grab it now before it goes out of print again. Now these last few are more mainstream. They're not from any like boutique distributors or anything, but they're often overlooked. And the first one here it's a Stephen King double feature, and I could really talk about both of these movies because I'd recommend them both, but one in particular is one that I think gets overlooked. If you know Stephen King movies, obviously he has had a resurgence in the last few years. Things like It, the Pet Sematary remake that's came out, the Outsider show on HBO. They're making a Mr. Mercedes show. They're doing a new show of The Stand. And then obviously Stephen King has Salem's Lot and other, crazy movies like Cujo. So much stuff that Stephen King has written. Misery, that has gone and become very popular, that a few of his lesser known stories get overlooked. And that one is 1408. This movie, I remember seeing this in movie theaters when I was like 14, and I think it's only rated PG-13, so like I could get into it, and that was super exciting. Be like, it's a PG-13 horror movie, how scary could it be? It's honestly really scary, and a great cast. John Cusack, Samuel L. Jackson, and it is one of the most faithful adaptations to the story, the book. So if you know the short story and the book that this is from, you'll enjoy it. But it's got a great cast. It's got some really scary moments, really terrifying, claustrophobic type of horror. It takes place in this hotel room, room 1408. And I think you'll really like that. And then if you get this double feature, I'll just quickly talk about it. But The Mist is an awesome Stephen King movie. If you like The Walking Dead, you'll love The Mist because there's a ton of characters, because it's Frank Darabont who directed it. There's a ton of characters from The Walking Dead, or I should say actors and actresses, who are in The Mist. Including Andrea, Carol. I'm trying to think of who else, but there's a good chunk of them. And The Mist has one of the best endings of any horror movie that I've seen in modern horror. It's scary monster movie type thing, but the ending is what makes it so notorious. So that's a nice secondary grab if you can get both of these. Now, second to last one I want to talk about, and this is a movie that I honestly didn't expect much at all. I went into this movie and I was like, who knows, based on the first one, this could be bad. And it is, and excuse the stupid sticker that's on my copy, but Annabelle Creation, maybe I'll just use this without the slipcover. That sticker is so bad and I need to get it off. But Annabelle Creation, directed by David Sandberg, And the first Annabelle, I think, was really disappointing for people who had loved the Conjuring movies because they expected a lot from the killer doll. And then Annabelle Comes Home, which is the third in the series, is like, oh, okay, we got back to sort of cheesy horror. But Annabelle Creation is the origin story of the Annabelle doll. And this is really, really well done and really scary. And it's one that gets overlooked because the rest of the Annabelle series, in my opinion, and probably some others, is just kind of meh. But Annabelle Creation is a good one. It is spooky, scary. It's a great origin story. And it honestly, you know, propelled David Sandberg probably onto some other things because of how well it did. David Sandberg did the movie Lights Out. If you don't know that one, that's a fun watch, creepy horror movie. But he also recently directed Shazam, and this was kind of in the middle, but it's really solid. It's a cool story, but it's by far, like, outside of the Conjuring movies, in the Conjuring universe, this is the best of all the offshoots and prequels and sequels and all that stuff. This is the best of that universe. So highly recommend Annabelle Creation, and I also highly recommend buying it without a fat price sticker on the top. And the last one I have here is a movie that I'd heard a lot about, and when I watched it I was honestly surprised at how much I liked it because I wasn't sure what to think. But it's The Black Coat's Daughter from A24 and Lionsgate. The movie stars Emma Roberts, who I'm sure you probably know if you're a horror fan from American Horror Story. She's in a couple of the better American Horror Story seasons. Coven's probably her most well known, but she's in this movie, and it's like about these girls at an all-girls prep school, and kind of everybody goes on a holiday break and they're stranded because their parents just never showed up to get them. And then there's some weird possession horror, demon horror, some really gory scenes, which I was not expecting based on the way the movie was going. It was much more like ghost, demon, possession, and then all of a sudden we got some crazy gore. So it's a highly underrated. When you think about A24, you think about Hereditary, Midsummer, The Witch, maybe even It Comes at Night. The Killing of a Sacred Deer is another great horror movie. They've done a ton of great horror, so I think this one gets a little bit overlooked, but I highly, highly recommend it if you want, especially a good movie to watch during the winter, because it takes place over the winter holiday. So if you're looking for some horror around Christmas time, not a bad one to watch, but I highly, highly recommend it. Watch it with the lights off, turn the sound up, have a good time. It's a super creepy movie, and I think it'll get your adrenaline going big time. So that's it for the video. There's 10 recommendations that, you know, maybe have been overlooked, maybe you've never heard of before. If you're a big time horror fan like myself, you've probably heard of some of these, but I'm hoping even if I can give you one or two that you either haven't heard of or hadn't thought about in a while and haven't seen yet, that it'll inspire you to maybe pick up some new Blu-rays, watch something before Halloween. Like I said, these are all available and currently available. Nothing's out of print, nothing's super expensive. You should be able to get all of these for a reasonable price, and you can get them all on Blu-ray, many of them, including the Criterions, the Scream Factory, Arrow Video. They have a great restoration on those older movies, and a lot of the newer stuff obviously looks great on Blu-ray compared to streaming or DVD as well. So I highly recommend supporting all these movies by actually making a purchase. But if you can't do that, you can find some of them. It'll be a little bit more difficult because, like I said, they're not mainstream to find them on streaming platforms. So physical media is probably your best bet. You're going to get the best quality anyway. But hopefully that gives you 10 recommendations here as we head towards Halloween of things you can watch that are different outside the norm, and you'll still get a really good scare. So I appreciate you all watching this. Make sure you're subscribed so you know when new 4K reviews go up. I've got a couple that are coming this week, so make sure you keep an eye out for those and have your notifications on. Like the video and share it as many places as you can to spread the word about physical media. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and let me know what you thought of the new video and the new camera. Like I said, it's brand new. Literally got it yesterday, shot this video right after I got it. So let me know how it worked, if it looks better, if you like it, things I can do to tweak it. I actually really appreciate that people in this community always give me tips on video and audio, because that's not really what I am. I'm not a video audio like geek when it comes to video editing. I like movies, so I appreciate all the support and help. So keep doing that. I never get offended if you have some tips or tricks, as long as you're not a jerk about it. So really appreciate all the support. Hope you have a guys. So I really appreciate all that support. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Watch some of these scary movies, get really freaky, get your adrenaline going, have some fun at Halloween. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you for watching.